This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not.
Welcome to the Warner Brothas Podcast. This is part 2. Part 1, you should be coming from the Olympics. If you wanted to jump from this to this one to the Olympics, make sure you check out the Olympics. Either way, this is part 2. We've got Timmy here. So as we were going to talk football, we're talking football here. My brother. Normally I'm the tier guy. Normally I'm the list guy. Normally that's kind of my thing. That's what I do. Kyle dabbled himself and has himself a tier list that I cannot wait to break down and judge and critique these tiers that Kyle has right now. Kyle, before we break in, how you doing? And then talk about your tiers and your process a little bit before we get right into it.
Well, first of all, Keenan, I'm great. You asked me the same thing in part 1, and I was telling you how elated I was from basketball. Now I'll give you the football side of it. I wanted to make it home from work in time to at least catch like the first half of the Patriots preseason game. Not that,
yeah.
I mean, it used to be back in the day, Keenan, like even 10 years ago, that you could see your starters play. This is when there was 4 preseason games. You'd see your starters at least play the first quarter, maybe the first 2 drives, right? And then game 2, maybe a little more, maybe the whole first quarter, and maybe one drive in the second quarter. And then the third game was the dress rehearsal. See them play a full half. And then the fourth game, maybe they don't play at all. Maybe they play a quarter. Now you got 3 preseason games. Some teams sit it out completely. I could be wrong about this completely. Maybe the first team, your starting lineups, maybe they get only one possession each, one drive each in the first game. I don't even know, honestly. But it seems like the third game still is the dress rehearsal. Again, I could be wrong about that. I haven't watched a ton of preseason.
It really depends on the team. But it seems like today for the Patriots, we saw all 4 quarterbacks. Bailey Zappi got the most run. Joe Milton got some. Drake May got some. Jacoby Brissett got some. So it depends on the team. But then someone like Aaron Rodgers who just said, "I'm not suiting up preseason."
Yeah,
seen him in preseason.
Yeah, and I mean,
in preseason.
we've talked about this, especially last year. Your first 4 weeks of the NFL season, you can even stretch it to 6 weeks, but definitely the first 4 weeks might as well be preseason. I mean, we see some ugly ass low scoring football the first 4 weeks. You don't really get into a rhythm until week 5, week 6. Really, I would say week 6, honestly. After you get those first kind of initial London games, that's really where you get a feel for the season. But you get some wild results anyway throughout the NFL season. We all know that any given Sunday. But those first 4 weeks especially, you really never know what you're going to get. You really never know. You mentioned the 4 quarterbacks, Keenan. That might be just how we should play quarterback this season. Just at random, throw Drake May in here, throw Bailey Zappi in here, throw Joe Milton in here, throw Jacoby in here. I think that's how we should do it. Because, man, we talked about this last time. I really have no expectations for this Patriots season. I have no idea what to expect from Gerard Mayo. I'm hopeful, but I have no clue what to expect from the quarterback position, what our offense is even going to look like, if we're going to have any innovation, what it's all going to look like. So I don't know. I'm just going along for the ride as far as a football fan.
Listen, this Joe Milton guy, if he impresses in preseason, I might have to just become a Joe Milton guy because I'm liking what I've seen on a couple clips. Oh, my God. Look at – sorry. Go on, Kyle. I want to hear these tears.
Yeah, I mean, all I've heard about Joe Milton really is that he's possibly the greatest practice quarterback of all time. And then, once it comes to the game, shit gets iffy. You know what I mean? Which is, that's the case for probably 90% of quarterbacks, honestly. But especially him. He's athletically gifted. I saw that scramble he had today. But it's hard to take anything from preseason. And again, maybe 10 years ago where, you had 4 games and, you could maybe piece up a little bit as far as a player goes, as far as a quarterback goes, maybe. If they look good, kind of like the NBA with Summer League. That's what I'd compare the NFL preseason to. Because you got a lot of guys out there fighting for their football lives, fighting for a job with a mix of, the vets trying to get in shape, trying to get some reps in, or not trying to get any reps in at all. So you really can't judge anything from preseason, which is unfortunate, but it's fun. And, same, this, Keenan, being an NBA fan, you say that about Summer League, but it comes down to it, and you can't help but make, proclamations from what you see and this and that. So, it's all part of the season. It's all fun. And I can't believe we are less than a month away from the season. I can't wait. I can't wait. I've cried tears of joy multiple times just looking at the NFL schedule. So, if I tear up during this podcast, just let it go. Right. So
from tears of joy to tears of joy.
Oh, that's great. That's actually, that was clever, Keenan. You should get back into rapping. I think I'm actually impressed. Before I get into this tier list, I want to ask you guys, would you rather I go from top to bottom or in reverse order?
Bottom to top.
Interesting. Okay.
Bottom to top.
Okay. We'll build some suspense. You asked my process with this, Keenan. Can't say it's much because, again, this is not a power ranking. I want to repeat that. This is not a power ranking. It kind of plays that way, but it's not. This is more so where these teams are right now. Try to take it as week one, not week one of preseason, but week one of the NFL season, but just where they are, where they're standing. So without further ado, if you guys are ready.
Did we name these?
Not the way I wanted to. They are named. I wanted to find some sort of rapper who had songs that fit everything, but I just did not have the time to do that. I wanted to do that, but
okay.
But you might have some cool names here.
For the bottom tier,
a
lot of people just call that number one pick contention.
True.
Could be the worst team in the league.
True. Well,
your top tier is going to be ludicrous number one spot.
That should be it. That's what it's called now. That's exactly what it's called now. Actually,
for my number one spot.
Actually, gonna get Ludo to perform that once I get to that top tier. But spoiler alert: Luda's somewhere back there about to perform. So, but
if Ludacris was at the house right now and you're this calm, that's great. He's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not.
Oh, hey, Luda,
I'm not
what's up, bro?
I don't think I'm a puppy or a toddler. So, I mean, I don't think
Well, no, I just mean
Luda do go way back.
You haven't even mentioned him once, not even pre-show.
That would be the surprise. It'd be like, and for the number one spot, out comes Atlanta. Ludicrous. But
move, get out the way.
that would be. They're all just ludicrous. You know what? Shit. Now I'm mad. Now I'm thinking about it. I could have probably done all ludicrous titles. I could have had a move bitch here.
Shake your money, make it like some. How low can you go? You could have put all ludicrous titles.
I'm upset. I'm upset just that quick. I could have definitely done it with ludicrous. Missed opportunity. Actually, we'll cut the pod and we'll come back next week where I have this all ludicrous title names. What else could we have had now? Now you got me thinking. The potion doesn't work. There's a lot. But
my chick bad.
The my chick bad tier. You guys ready though? You guys want to get into this?
Yes.
Well, since we're going in reverse order, this first tier, or if you want to call it the last tier, it's the teams that are entering a new era. And here's where it might get confusing. I actually only have 3 teams in this tier. There's a few other teams that definitely qualify, but you'll see as this plays out where they fall. So the teams under the new era, or the teams that are entering a new era, as Afro mentioned, the Patriots are in this tier. The Tennessee Titans are in this tier. And this last team is certainly in a new era, like in the most purest form. I mean, they got a new owner, new coach, new quarterback. It's the Washington Commanders. So those are the 3 teams I can say definitively are in a completely new era. I mean, the Patriots are coming out of officially the Belichick-Brady era. Obviously, Belichick, the last relic of it. He's gone. Got a new quarterback. The Mac Jones era is done for. And this is a completely new team. Everything about the Patriots is going to look different going forward. Yes, Keenan.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So, obviously, you're going from bottom to top.
Sure.
With your top team being probably Are you saying these are the 3 worst teams in the NFL right now, or are you just tiering them together?
I shall repeat, this is not a power ranking. This is just where these teams stand right now.
No.
But,
I'm just saying, like, I know that. I'm not trying. I'm just wondering because, like, I just wanted to.
right. No, I mean,
just one.
Look, and this is the thing. Like, I got, for instance, next to the Commanders, I have them that they could be in another group that's coming up. But I just think they're the definition of a team that's in a new era. Like I said, with a new owner, new coach, new quarterback. I mean, this is just going to be a brand new team. They might even be changing from the Commanders again within the next year, right? So everything about them is a new era. I actually think they're probably a better team than both the Pats and the Titans as of today. That'll all depend on Jaden Daniels, honestly. But as far as their skill position players, you got DeAndre Hopkins injured in Tennessee. I think Will Levis is okay. I mean, me and Tim talked last year about, like, I hated him completely just off his food choices, but he can sling it. He's got an arm. He looks pretty poised back there for a young QB, but we really don't know. We don't know where their head coach is, Brian Callahan. So if you want me to pick out of the 3, which one I feel the best about, it would be the Commanders with their skill position group. They've had players on defense. They've had a passable defense. It'll all really come down to Jaden Daniels. And again, that's why I have them. I'll mention when we get to that group what group I had them in contention for as well. And again, there's actually probably 3-4 teams you could say, hey, Kyle, why didn't you put them in the new era? And I'll tell you why, because they fall in this group. This group is just called, like, I got like 7 question marks here because I don't know what the fuck they're doing. I don't know what direction they're going in as football teams. Tell me if you agree. The New Orleans Saints. I got the New York Giants. Your squad, Timmy. I got the Carolina Panthers. I've got the Denver Broncos, and I've got the Las Vegas Raiders. Those 5 teams, I truly have no idea what their team's going to look like next year, what their team's going to look like this year, if it's even going to correlate to last year. I mean, like the Broncos and Raiders, for instance, there's things I like. There's things I liked last year from them. But obviously, new quarterback in Denver. The Raiders have a new coach. Their quarterback situation is kind of ugly. They got position players. But it really does seem like they're in between 2 eras. Broncos still got Sean Payton, which is, in theory, good. But everything about the Broncos since Peyton Manning left has been pretty questionable. Right?
Everything since the Broncos, even before, like, Peyton Manning has been like the greatest deodorant for the Broncos because before Peyton Manning, they weren't great for a period of time. And then Peyton chose them.
They at least had Elway and they at least had like players in a direction. I literally don't know the direction of these teams right here. Like the Saints are just in the middle. Actually, the Saints could have been in another tier, but Saints just have so many vets and they still have Dennis Allen and they're passable. But it's like, what are they really doing? What are the Panthers are a fucking joke. They're the joke of the NFL in a league that has the Commanders in it, who have been a laughing stock for the last few decades, right? So I just and Tim, you can speak more about the Giants. I mean, I actually think I like some of their players. You just never really know with Daniel Jones. He's okay. He's sometimes good. He's never great. You don't have Saquon there anymore. I actually like your head coach, but I think if you guys go 7-10 or whatever, I think he's out of there. And I think he's a good coach, but I just don't know what their direction is, what their plans are. And I don't know. I have no definitive feel for the Giants. And again, these other 4 teams that are in this tier. So I want to hear what you have to say about the Giants as a fan.
Real quick.
Sure.
What would you define as great for a quarterback? Like, could you put a stat line out there that you would say is like, that's great. That's top tier.
Great. I mean,
for one game. Give me one game.
For one game?
Yeah.
Give me, 20.
Because you said he's never been great. He's never been great.
Over a sustained period of time. Time, you can't say. I mean, Could he give us a 28 for 37 for, 3 touchdowns, 358? Sure, he could give us that. But I've never seen it. I don't know if we've seen Daniel Jones be like a top 15 quarterback for 6 weeks straight kind of thing. We've never had it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. So that's what I mean. And I think he's like the last year you guys made the playoffs. Yeah, you guys had an easy schedule, but he didn't really have weapons to throw deep to. He used his legs more than he did before. Like, he managed the game well, and I think he can throw the ball deep.
They also just told him he's not throwing deep. They just said, "Hey, we're gonna just not throw. We're gonna really run.
For sure.
You're gonna just throw. You're gonna try to get the third and short. We're gonna throw it on third and short, hopefully, and get there." Like, he had like 15 touchdowns that year.
But their receiving core might as well have been us three too.
Passing, that is.
You know what I mean? Like, they had nobody to throw to. Now he's gonna have the legs of Malik Neighbors. Darren Waller retired after, Tim, as you mentioned, that video, that breakup video where he's trying to get Kelsey Plum back. That was, like you said, he might have had to retire after that. Like, it might not even be football related. It just might have been because of that video.
Can't come back.
Can't come back from
Listen,
that.
Kelsey's doing fine though. Kelsey's chilling.
Yeah, Kelsey's gonna.
she's
gonna
about to go get
herself
a gold medal, back-to-back championship. Kelsey's chilling.
But I mean, yeah, Tim, keep going. I want to hear what your thoughts are on the Giants, because might help me better for my preseason predictions with them.
So the one, it is really tough. I totally agree, and I don't even have a problem with them being in this tier. I honestly, like, if you're putting them in a power ranking, I'm putting them in the bottom tier. I'm putting them in, missing playoffs. They need more pieces. Like, they can't win. I think best case scenario, we get the exact same year that we got from Daniel Jones when they made the playoffs, which is like 3,800 total yards. Like, that's the peak, absolute peak between passing and rushing, and 25 touchdowns. That's not good enough to win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So I think if we get that again, I think we're low-key just, repeating the cycle of, okay, yeah, he's good. Let's keep going with him. And then we get, a bad year again, whatever it is. I think their plan is to eventually move on from Daniel.
I hope
his deal is like they can get out of it after this year. They've already like paid the money, so they can totally cut him next year. Mm-hmm. If he sucks this year, we're drafting a quarterback and we're going. Like, that's the thing. The problem is the Giants' defense could be good, could be really good. They might have the best defensive line in the NFL this year. Mm-hmm. That's not a bold take. Dexter Lawrence is one of the best defensive tackles in the league, top 3, unarguable, now that Aaron Donald's retired. Mm-hmm. Kayvon is, emerging. He had 12 sacks last year. Like, we could totally see another big one. And they just got Brian Burns, who is also like this could be a legitimate top 10 defense this year, and that's going to keep them in a lot of games. So that's going to keep them away from getting a top pick to take a quarterback. So I see us in this loop.
They're the same position as the Patriots, essentially, is what their team looks like. But the thing with the Patriots is we have, hopefully, the quarterback for the future, because they got a top 3 pick and they got Drake May.
Exactly.
But that's always the boat that you're in is the boat that I am the most nervous about being in. It was always we were going to be just the 15th pick, anywhere from 10 to 15, where we will never get that quarterback. We won't get the piece, and so you just have to hope that you found like Baker Mayfield, like he went to Tampa last year. Like, he had a really good year. Mm-hmm. Tampa got to the second round of the playoffs, and then now hopefully he can become.
But you can definitely get that quarterback. You can definitely get that quarterback at that.
Yeah, no, but you have to hope that. But it's not just getting that quarterback; it's getting the right. Because in that situation, it's getting the right quarterback for your situation for them to then maximize it to their potential. So, obviously, Baker Mayfield's now will come along every now and in free agency, and you can kind of get him, and then hopefully he pans out. But
I mean, even in the draft though, too.
Well, yeah. So then it's quarterback development, which is also something that's I don't really know how great we had Tom Brady, and that's a lot. That's obviously Tom Brady. And then other than that, it's been we don't really have a basis for a lot of quarterback development over anything. Because when you have Tom Brady, you don't need to develop a quarterback because you have Tom Brady. So it was always something where I was nervous to be I don't want to just be in this consistent cycle of not good enough to get Joe Burrow or whomever is at the top of the draft to hope there. But it was just we're here, and now we got to hope to try to find a quarterback along with X. But so where you guys are was where I was afraid of, and I'm hopeful Drake May or Joe Milton is the guy. That's the hope.
Yeah, I mean, Any objection though to what I've got so far? Anybody you would insert into this questionable tier?
So I have no questions in what your team's names are, and since this isn't a power ranking, I know we're kind of working from bottom to top, but if we were lining this up, the Titans would be on your bottom 3, and I think the Titans are better than a lot of the teams ahead of them with the question marks. If that is the case, I know that's not kind of how you're doing it. So
you're saying you see a world where the Titans make the playoffs? You think they're a top 16 team? You think they're a fringe playoff team?
I think the Titans are better than every other team that I've written down on this paper so far.
Interesting.
I think they're better than the Saints, Giants, Panthers, Denver, and Raiders, better than Washington and New England.
I would say they're even with a few teams. Yeah. Definitely not better than every team, but I do like the Titans a little bit more than the Saints, the Broncos, the Raiders, at least.
Every team that's right there, that would be it. They would be within their top 23. Yeah. Top 24 kind of team. Around that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have them in the 28 to 32. I'd have them in the 23 to 26.
I see them more like the Broncos. The Broncos have good players on their defense, good players even on their offense. They got some skill position players. But, again, the teams I have in this tier, overall, I just have no idea what direction they're going. I don't think they have an idea what direction they're going. I don't necessarily think the Commanders, Pats, and Titans are the 3 worst teams in the league. I'd probably have the Panthers for sure. The Panthers are definitely the worst team in the league, probably, right, based off of last year. Again, Pats, Commanders, Titans, those are 3 teams that are officially in a new era. Titans, I see the Titans, like I said, somewhere in that Broncos, Panthers. They could be competitive, but, it's still a small sample with Will Levis. I do like what I've seen, but small sample.
We're fine. Then we're perfectly fine if that's how because I know you're more so just grouping these teams together, kind of putting like teams in the same-ish kind of style. Yeah. So then we're perfectly fine. If you were putting the Titans below some of those teams, that would be where my problem lies, but you already stated that's not what your goal is. You keep going.
Either way, the Titans would still be in these bottom 2 tiers of, just teams I don't think are making the playoffs, right?
They're not making.
We're about to get into the more competitive teams here, and actually, these
are the 8. These are 8 teams.
For sure.
Regardless, even if they were the best out of these 8, they're still not making the playoffs. So it doesn't make a difference.
For sure. So this 9th team, this is one of 2 teams that has its own tier. This is just a team by itself. They could fall into really any of the upcoming groups. They really could even fall into the new era group. But because of their situation, because of their QB, because of their coach, I felt like they belonged in a tier by themselves, and that's the Los Angeles Chargers. They got Jim Harbaugh.
All right, so what do we have a name or anything
it's
for
just
it?
Chargers. That's literally the group name. It's the Chargers. They are in a group to themselves. Listen, they got a quarterback who many would call elite. They've got a coach who many would call elite. Thing is, the Chargers are the Chargers.
Is he top 10? Is Justin Herbert a top 10 quarterback in the league?
Is Herbert a top 10 quarterback?
Just checking. What you guys are thoughts on?
I would think so. Yeah, Herbert's in the top 10 for sure.
I think he's right around 10, 10 to 8.
Okay. And that's the thing with him is we've seen the tools. He's got everything you'd want out of a quarterback as far as just the measurables, the physicals. He can scramble. He's got a big arm. He seems to be pretty smart with the football. I haven't seen really my only thing out of him, and this would be kind of the same with Trevor Lawrence. I haven't really seen grittiness out of them like you see from Mahomes, like you see from Josh Allen, like you even see from Daniel Jones sometimes. I don't think you get that extra oomph from them. That would be my only complaint about Herbert in particular. The reason why I have them in their own tier again is because that QB and that coach have real expectations. Jim Harbaugh, in his short time in the NFL, has never had a losing season. And they lost some skill position players, but it really doesn't matter. I don't want to say, we've talked about this with the Patriots in the past with the weapons and stuff. I do think, look, we've seen an AFC championship game that involved Blake Bortles as the QB with a passable offense, with a loaded defense. But, it wasn't one of the best offenses we've ever seen in our life, right? So there's a world here, and here's the caveat. We mentioned this last time, Keenan. Justin Herbert has plantar fasciitis, a terrible injury.
Yes.
So that alone could already derail everything. So I don't really know what to expect from them between that injury, between, again, this elite quarterback and coach combo. I think it could be a successful season for them. This is a team that could be in the playoffs. I certainly don't think it's a 4 to 6 win team, but I don't know if Chargers fans, if there is any anymore, I don't know if Chargers fans will be disappointed if they went 7-10. Like, I don't know. Again, that's why they're in a tier by themselves. I want to know what your guys' read on the Chargers is, what your expectations are for them as a team, because they're just an anomaly to me. It's why they're in a tier by themselves. Because you could tell me they're in the AFC
I'm going to go through and I'm going to print.
Sorry, I was going to say, you could tell me they're in the AFC Championship game or contending for the AFC Championship game, like a strong divisional game. And you could tell me that, man, it was another Chargers season where they were competitive and it just didn't work out. I don't expect that with Harbaugh, though. But my bad. Keep going.
No, you're good. I don't have an exact for what I think this team's going to be. I'm going to obviously break that down more when I go through the entire schedule and mark every game. But I have the Chargers roughly around a 500 team that should play teams close, but I think they need another year of getting pieces and kind of building around. You've got the coach, you've got the quarterback, you've got the left tackle, you're building the lineup a little more. And then now you need to get the pieces around him. Obviously, he doesn't have Keenan Allen this year, which is going to be difficult because that was your number one target it's been your number one target your entire career there, obviously. So it's going to be, then you got to get the pieces around him. That defense, two things I'm looking for them. Can the defense play up to what their contracts are? And are they going to be competitive in a lot of games, especially against the Chiefs or against these higher tier teams? Those are the two things you look for. And do we see progression in Justin Herbert? Because Jim Harbaugh is supposed to be a quarterback guy. So we should see development in Justin Herbert. This defense, he's coached plenty of good defenses before, so this defense should be something where Derwin James is playing up to contract level, where you have these actual top-notch players are playing up to their contract and not playing underneath that. That's around a 500 team roughly. That's what I think they are.
I can agree with most of that. I do think you had asked, is Justin Herbert a top 10 QB? He might be, yeah, 100%. I don't think this year he's going to prove to us that he's a top 10 QB because I don't think they're going to throw the ball as much as Justin Herbert is used to throwing the ball. They brought in Greg Roman, who was offensive coordinator in Baltimore, team known for running the football. Jim Harbaugh comes from Michigan, team known for running the football, coached the 49ers, team that was known for running the football. They're going to run the football. They've brought in a couple guys, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and I can't think of the rookie that they just drafted. He's got a funny
Ravens
name.
AFC West.
Yeah, basically they're gonna run. They're gonna run it a lot. I think that was evident when they were fine with letting Mike Williams walk and trading away Keenan Allen. Like, I think they knew coming in that at this point it was, we can run and we can get away with it. They have Vlad McConkey, who was a pretty special player for Georgia. He just wasn't on the field a lot, so that's why nobody really knows who he is. He's very talented. I think he's low-key going to be like Cooper Kupp. He's going to be that zone coverage beater who's going to be pretty great, and I think that can really work for the Chargers and for Herbert. But I think this team is going to win games through the run game and through the defense doing exactly what Keenan said, playing up to contract, playing up to the Jim Harbaugh standard. Sorry.
Might as well be by Harvard standard, but Kamini Vidal.
Yeah,
that's his name.
Kamini Vidal. That's his name.
Vidal.
Yeah. I could totally see him getting work just because, man, J.K. Dobbins could be one push-off away from tearing his Achilles for the third time, and Gus Edwards has never played a full season like in his career. He's always had some sort of injury, so I could totally see him getting some work. And I believe he was like a 4-year player at Troy. Like, he's going to be the a guy that can play the whole season, and he's a rookie, so he's going to want to, maybe play through some like small injuries and whatever.
And like
so,
the charge, go on. Sorry.
I think this team, like I could totally see a world where this team is close to a 10-win team, close to the playoff picture, but Justin Herbert is sitting with like 24 touchdowns, and it's like, yeah, nobody thinks that that's like crazy, but he just had like a super efficient touchdown season where he didn't need to throw 35 to be in every single game because they're winning games 21-14 or something like that.
It was like, this has to be a more defensive team. They don't have the skill positions right now because they had to get rid of Mike Williams. They had to get rid of Keenan Allen. I mean, they've got Gus Edwards as your bell cow, Joshua Palmer, Ladd McConkey, and then they have Quentin Johnston, DJ Chark Jr., like Will Dissly at your tight end. Like, these are just like second and third string guys but you have your coach, you have your quarterback, you have a left tackle. Those are three things that you need to be successful.
And a right tackle.
So and a right tackle, absolutely.
When they drafted Alt's because they have Rashawn Slater, who is
I was referring to Rashawn Slater as they've got their left tackle.
Wait, did they get Alt? No, wait, the Titans got Alt.
No, the Chargers got Joe Alt.
Oh.
No, I thought the Titans should have gotten. We all thought the Titans because we all thought the Titans were going to take Joe Alt, but the Chargers ended up taking Joe Alt because we thought the Chargers were going to take Malik Neighbors or take somebody,
a player that could help their offense. Like
that was the thought behind it. But now you've got the corners,
receivers. Yeah.
You've got the corners taken. You've got your quarterback. You've got your coach, and now you have to fill out the pieces around it. So I don't think they're long story. They should be about a 500 team this year because I think Harbaugh's a very good coach. Kyle, you good?
So before I move on, I do want to respond to that. If Herbert did not have this injury, and I'm not spoiling anything here because I really don't know where I'm going with my preseason predictions yet. We still got about 2 or 3 weeks before we really unveil that. I agree with Tim. I think this would be closer to a 10-win team. This is not a rebuild situation. I don't think Harbaugh's looking at it as a rebuild situation. Harbaugh is a dude. Like, that's someone that would be like him going to Michigan. That would be like Tom Thibodeau leaving the NBA and going to college for 4 years and then reemerging in the NBA. Like, I can't believe that he even lasted that long in college because he's just an NFL guy to me. And it's crazy to me. He was a career backup quarterback, got some starts in. Like, he was a serviceable quarterback in his career. And he is such a power run game guy. When he went to the 49ers, Keenan, that first year, they made it to the NFC Championship game. 3 out of his 4 years, they at the least made it to the NFC Championship game. Obviously went to the Super Bowl. Last year, they went 8-8. That first year, you could have gave that characterization. You could have characterized that team the same way you could this Chargers team as far as their skill position players. You would have said, yeah, they got Frank Gore. Crabtree hadn't done that much. Vernon Davis hadn't done that much at tight end. There wasn't really much expectations out of them. And they had Alex Smith, who looked like a bust at that time. You got Justin Herbert here. And if you're asking him, if you're simplifying the game by running the ball, and yeah, you might not have top tier receivers, but the fact that they didn't go and get one of those LSU guys with their first round draft pick tells you they're more than okay with what they have. And if you're a great quarterback like they think Herbert is, you think he can elevate, So if you're taking the pressure off him with these running backs, going with a power run game, you're going to go with more play action. That might be enough, especially with Herbert's versatility, his athleticism, similar to Alex Smith in a way, as far as his legs. He's more athletic than you think, that kind of thing. Obviously, Herbert's got a stronger arm. So aside from the injury, yeah, I don't think this team has real expectations as far as, again, an AFC championship. I think they could be a team that would be feisty, but, with this injury, that's a terrible injury to have for any football player, any athlete really, but especially your starting quarterback. I don't really know what to make of them. And again, we'll get more to it. Mm-hmm. We'll see him in preseason. That's something you can be more concrete about if we do see Herbert in the preseason, is how he's moving around and stuff. But in general, if this was a fully healthy team, I don't know. I think they would be one of the more interesting teams, one of the more fun teams, which will segue right into this tier. This one actually had a cool name. It's a party. It's a party. It's a party. Listen, these 4 teams, I think they're going to be the most fun teams in the NFL. I could see these teams, they could be in the lower like category. They could be in like a 7-win team. These teams could be 11-win teams. 3 out of the 4, I would say. But I think these teams are going to be competitive. I think they're going to be 4 of the most fun teams to watch in the entire league. Every Sunday, they're going to be competitive. Every Sunday, they're at least going to have highlights. And again, they could be a couple tiers up if I did this in week 8, week 12, something like that. These 4 teams, the Chicago Bears, the Indianapolis Colts, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Minnesota Vikings. I think those are just going to be, you turn on Red Zone, you're going to get something crazy each week. They could be competitive, or they could just be lower tier, but still competitive, feisty type team. But if you told me they were not only competing for a playoff spot, but maybe already got a playoff spot clinched, 4th, 5th seed, they're in the divisional round, they could be put. I could see it either way with any one of these 4 teams, especially more so the Bears, Colts, and Cardinals. Vikings, I don't have really any expectations for, but I do think they could be fun. They could be competitive, or they could be trash, but still competitive. You know what I mean? So that's what this group is right here. You tell me how you assess it with those 4 teams.
I like the tier. Minnesota's the interesting one to me. I would put them more in new era.
I thought about it
because I think with JJ McCarthy, I think they're kind of more a new era team.
I'll tell you why they're not, but I'll let you. I got a response to that.
That's what I would have them there. The other 3 I do like.
That was their other consideration for the group, but I'll tell you why they're not after. Keep going.
I was gonna say I would have them. I probably would have them there. And there's a team that I'm going to wait on that I would add to this off the top of my head, but it depends on where they are later on to make sense. So I have to wait for the second half. But
I kind of want to hear it.
Timmy, you go first, and then I'll see if I feel like saying it yet.
I'm going to take a guess. I think it's the Buccaneers. Anyways, I'm going to keep going.
That's not actually, but go on.
Oh, okay. I agree with Keenan. I think the Vikings are like the odd man out in this tier. All 3 of these other teams are very close to being like a good playoff team. Like they were close last year. The Bears really weren't that far off with how they ended the season. And the Cardinals getting Kyler back, now actually having a number 1 wide receiver, their offense could be fine. Like it could totally work. I don't see it working with the Vikings. I think I would actually put the Vikings into the no idea tier with the Raiders and the Saints and all those teams. Just because, their defense did play well last year, but like other than Jefferson, I don't have a lot of trust in this offense. Hawkinson's not going to he's not going to start the season, I don't believe. And even when he comes back, he's recovering from a pretty nasty injury. So that's tough. Aaron Jones is older now. He's never been a super healthy back, and now you got they're saying Sam Darnold. They're saying he's the starting quarterback right now. I don't have a lot of trust in Sam Darnold. I have more trust that with the head coach they have, that's a better situation than when he was in New York with whatever his name was there, Adam Gase or whatever. He didn't really have a great shot, but like this might be his best opportunity, and it might work out, but I honestly don't see it working out.
So he's got Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson when he comes back, and Justin Jefferson with Aaron Jones. So like
Jordan Addison is supposed to be suspended because he got a DUI.
Yes.
I believe he's got a 4-game suspension.
Is it 4? I wasn't sure if it was 2 or 4. But
I believe that's what I heard. I don't know. I don't even know if that's like
I think, sometimes you see like, oh, he might be suspended for 4 games, and you see him week 1, you're like, wait, what happened?
But like either way, he doesn't really, in my opinion, he doesn't have Hawkinson. I don't think Hawkinson's going to be a major contributor for the first 8 weeks of the season. And then by that point, I think we see McCarthy in there. So I don't think Sam Darnold is actually going to have Hawkinson.
Much so, yeah. Fair enough.
So response to both of you guys. Again, this is not a power ranking. And as I said, leading into this, the Vikings are kind of the outlier in this. They don't fall into the playoff version that maybe the Bears, the Colts, and the Cardinals do. But again, this is this is fun. It's a party. I think fans are going to be excited. Like I think in general, Vikings fans are excited about their team, right? Yeah, they are entering a new era with J.J. McCarthy possibly, but in large part, they still have a lot of the core from last year with Kirk Cousins, right? You still got – this is more so Justin Jefferson's team than anything. Yeah, they're going to have the quarterback.
Yeah.
They got Kevin O'Connell as head coach, who's a good head coach. They still got Flores as the DC. That defense is rolling the way it was last year. You're going to be competitive. If you can get Darnold to turn down the turnovers, you're going to win some games. And Darnold alone, Darnold's trash, don't get me wrong. But he's also able to 2 or 3 games a year just not be trash and do some athletic things and win you a game. So if you get 3 games early with Darnold, let's say he gets injured, which I think is going to happen, and you get McCarthy in there, who knows? We don't know what he's going to be yet. But we do know that offense is going to make it easier for him to transition when you got a Justin Jefferson, when you got a Jordan Addison. You know, Hawkinson might not be there, but you got a run game, right? You got Aaron Jones. And again, you have a good head coach in Kevin O'Connell. And then you got Adam Gase. Or did you say Adam Gase is their OC? Who is their OC?
I think O'Connell runs the offense. I don't know who actually has the title.
So I think this team's going to be competitive. I don't necessarily see them being a playoff team, but I do think that they're going to be a fun, competitive team. With the Darnold side of that, though, it could go bad and it could go bad quick, but I still think they'd be a fun team. Excuse me.
Yep.
So that's why I don't have them in the new era, because it doesn't really feel like a complete new era, because really they're just Cousins was the main piece they lost. They still got a lot of that core from last year. So that's why they fall into the fun category with the Cardinals, with the Colts, with the Bears. Incidentally enough, those 3 teams that I just mentioned, Cardinals, Colts, Bears, all 3 are in tough divisions. Like, I think all 3 of those are the toughest, some of the toughest divisions in football. So I think they're going to play spoiler a lot of the season. Again, they might not make the playoffs, any 3 of them, any of those 3 right there. They might not make the playoffs, but I think they'll be close. And I think they're just going to give a lot of teams headaches week to week, especially if Caleb Williams looks how he does. Like, I know they're just training camp videos, but, you know, even if he's just slightly better than Fields was last year, that's got you in the vicinity of 7 to 10 wins, you know, and, you know, however the division cracks out, we'll see. Same with the Colts. They're going to have Anthony Richardson back. Cardinals got a full year of Kyler. They obviously got Harrison Jr. coming in. And the head coach has them playing pretty well. So those are 3 teams I think can be scary. Again, they could be 7-win teams. They could be 10, 11-win teams. But I think no matter what, all 4 of those teams, Vikings included, are going to be fun, competitive teams regardless. So that's what I got there. We ready to move on to the next tier? Or do we want to discuss? Anybody got Bears thoughts, Colts thoughts, Cardinals thoughts?
No, not right now.
Out of those 3 teams, I think the Colts have the best chance at making the playoffs.
I would say the Bears personally, but
I think the Bears, it's tough because, like Kyle said, they're in a loaded division.
division.
Like the Packers and the Lions are probably going to make the playoffs. I don't see. And then the NFC East, you got Cowboys and Eagles. That's really tough to squeak in right there.
I would say,
but Colts would have to as a wild card, and you've got the Bills, Dolphins, Jets, depending on how you feel about Aaron Rodgers. You've got the entire AFC North. You've got the Chargers, as we just talked about, with the Chiefs, and then you've got the Jags, who I think are going to be around there anyway, with the Texans as well. So it's going to – I think it's very tough for the Colts. I also think it's tough for Chicago because, they're right now the 3rd best team in their division. Like, you've got to fairly put the Packers and Lions above them as of right now. It may not end that way, but to start, Tampa Bay deserved the respect. They definitely should be around a playoff team. Atlanta's now up as a playoff team. Philly and Dallas should be playoff caliber teams, I should say. And then you've got the Rams and 49ers, who are absolutely playoff caliber teams, with the Cardinals being a team that's in question. And then the Seahawks are – they could do something random. The Seahawks, just with the Seahawk title in their helmet, like, they could just be like a 10-6-7 team and be like, wait, why and how? But then just because they have the Seahawks helmet, no other reason. There's so many years where I'm like, well, they shouldn't even be competing, and they're like, oh, we're close to a playoff team. So,
yeah, I mean,
but yeah, no, I think both of them are in tough spots.
Just to respond to that, I would, if you gave me the choice, I would agree with Tim. Maybe have the Colts as the best, only really because the Lions and Packers are in the Bears division. So I'd say the Colts had the best chance out of those. I'd put the Bears next, actually. And the Cardinals are kind of a question mark because we didn't see a full season from Kyler. But I think we all thought the Cardinals were going to be trash. They didn't have a great record, but they were competitive all the way through. They gave a lot of teams, even their teams in the division, a lot of fits. So, I mean, all 3 are going to be competitive, frisky, again, fun teams. That's why they're the fun tier. It's a party tier. Plies, Keenan, you remember Plies, Florida rapper?
Yeah.
Right? He had a song back in the day called Who Hotter Than Me. This tier is called Who Midder Than Me. These teams are hot mid right here. Like just nothing but mid. They got 8 and 9, 9 and 8, 10 and 7 written all over them. I got the Atlanta Falcons, the Seattle Seahawks, as you mentioned, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Brandon Petty's Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's my team. Those are my 5 teams of the who midder than me tier. And again, I mean, they kind of fall into the fun team category. You tell me these teams are going to go 7 and 10. You tell me they're going to go 10 and 7, 9 and 8. And even a couple of these teams, maybe they squeak out more than that. I don't know. I do know that they're going to be right in the thick of it, right in the middle. Other than that, I can't tell you that much. Kim, what's up?
Does Brandon Ayuk to the Steelers, would that change your idea on the Steelers at all?
Possibly. Yeah, they would probably go to the fun tier. That's all. So they would go to the fun tier. So it would really change them from...
Because that's obviously not official, but it's been reported that he's...
Right, that's probably the front runner. Right? So, yeah, these are the teams that... I mean, let's talk about the Steelers in particular. Because I think they're the most interesting. They're in a hellacious division. Right? Like, no doubt about that. They do have one of the better coaches in the league. They do have...
Yes.
Though there's a lot of questions, they have a better, improved quarterback situation. Fields looks really good at practice. Yeah. Russell Wilson, he's literally the definition of mid. So, I mean, he might be the poster boy for this fucking tier right here. But, I mean, even that, I mean, he's better than, I don't even remember what, Kyle Pickett, Kenny Pickett, whatever the fuck his name is.
Kenny
much
Pickett,
better than
Mason
him.
Rudolph.
Kenny Pickett, yes. Much better than him. So, even like just that alone, if you if you stuck him in there alone, Steelers probably, like, if it's just Russell Wilson, Steelers probably still go 8 and 9, maybe 9 and 8. Who knows? If he's just playing game manager, they've got a good enough defense. They've got ballers on offense. They got a run game. So, I mean, that alone, and it's kind of like the Vikings. Like I said, even if you got Russ in there for, let's say, 6 games, let's say he goes 3-3, gets injured, or they bench him. If Fields comes in and he's better than that, you still might be looking at a 10-win season. We just don't know. So, yeah, I think all these teams are going to be competitive. Seahawks, I really don't know. They could fall off all the way, but I still think they'd be competitive. But that's why they're mid. That is why these teams are mid. They could go either way. I don't think any one of these teams are going to be Super Bowl contenders. We could be wrong. Jags could certainly take a leap up, but I think even Brandon Petty would tell you they're hot mid. We saw that last year. And if Trevor Lawrence takes a leap, and I were to redo these tiers, week 8, week 6, even, who knows? They could be 2 tiers up. But as of right now, I can't, those are the definition of the middle class right there. Those 5 teams. And you could put the It's a Party teams in there too. I think they're pretty middle class, but I think they're the more fun teams clearly out of that group. So the middle class is the middle class. Those are going to be fringe playoff teams, I believe, but we'll see. And it could also go badly for them, but we'll see. That's why
I would personally put the Seahawks in the question marks.
That's fair.
I don't fully know what they're doing.
That's completely fair.
And then Atlanta, I am fine with them there, but they would be the one for me that'd be subject to move to multiple spots because it really comes down to what Kirk Cousins are you getting. If you're getting peak Minnesota Kirk Cousins, then I would have them higher than mid because I think they're a legitimate they're a legitimate NFC Championship contender if you're getting Kirk Cousins. If you're getting Pete Kirk. If not, then I think that I'm fine with them being there, and I'm fine with them being there because, again, him and Aaron Rodgers are 2 quarterbacks I have no idea how to judge because they're both old quarterbacks off of a terrible injury. So I am not putting any judgment. Those are guys I'm waiting to see because I have no idea how they're going to respond.
I'll respond to that. Seahawks are completely right. Seahawks could definitely be in the question mark tier, but they did hire Mike Macdonald, which every Seahawk fan alive seems to be ecstatic about, right? So you're improving your defense. The offense is largely the same. And if you can improve off that, and if Geno's, again, Geno could fall off at any moment. And that's why they're the middle tier. But if this offense is somewhat explosive, or what we've seen the last few years, and Geno has a pretty good season, and that defense improves, like you said, Keenan, in the last tier list, I think you said something about them going 10-6, 10-7. They could wind up being there. I think they're going to be more on the losing end of all of it, but I do think they will be.
I think they're probably in roughly around 7-10. But
yeah, I think they'll be.
I'm fine with them being there. I'd also have them in the question mark.
I think. Well, here's the reason I don't is I do think they have a general direction. Whereas if we go back and we're talking about the Saints, the Giants, the Panthers, I think the Seahawks.
Saints have no money.
I think exactly. I think the Seahawks in general, even throughout the Pete Carroll era, that's one of the most stable franchises. So, yeah, I don't know what their end game's going to be, but I do know they're going to be competitive. I know the defense is going to improve, and I know they got an offense. So, yeah, I already know what I'm getting more so out of them. It's just a matter of the wins.
Okay. Tim.
Go ahead, Tim.
One thing that you didn't mention about the Seahawks is they got a new offensive coordinator. They got Ryan Grubb from Washington. Washington was a very, very good pass team last year, and the Seahawks have a very good receiving core between DK, Jackson, and Tyler Lockett's a little bit older now, but he can still perform.
You can still get over the top.
I still do believe in the Seahawks. I think it all does kind of come down to Geno. We did see some regression from Geno last year, and if he regresses anymore, I think then it's done. And this is a mid-off between all these teams. But between all of these teams, the Falcons and the Seahawks are the two teams that I could see being, like Kyle said, he didn't think any of these teams were like potential Super Bowl teams. I think those two could be potential like Super Bowl teams if all the stars aligned and if everything worked out. Like if Kirk is healthy, this offense could be great. And if their new coach is the real deal, then they're going to be good, like defensively. So then they're going to be in every game. Yeah. And they can totally be there. So those two teams are the only two teams that I think you could have some optimism about. The other three, like Kyle said, they're mid, super mid. They're not going to be playoff teams. We literally saw the Jaguars with the season on the line. All they had to do was beat a 6-10 team, and they got outscored by 15 points. That's mid. That's the definition of mid.
They're DeMar DeRozan, and I only mean that in the sense of he's a mid-range specialist. He's just a midi guy.
I was gonna say if you're calling him mid,
DeMar's better. DeMar's better than mid. DeMar's a very good player. No, him to say his game is he's just a mid-range guy.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think the Falcons, it's interesting because the Seahawks were both of your guys' NFC Super Bowl representative last year.
Yep. So won't be mine this year.
Yeah.
Not a shock.
I mean, again, to respond to the question marks one, the Seahawks wouldn't be in there just because they have a good front office. Like we've seen it. Yeah, the head coach has changed, but we've seen enough from them to know they know what they're doing. Panthers have no idea what they're doing. The Giants have been just in constant turnover really since that second Super Bowl. Even throughout the end of the Eli era, it's been constant turnover there. Again, yeah, and these teams, like you said, there is a world. Falcons, even the Steelers, like if everything broke right for the Steelers, I could see us being week 12 being fuck, this team might have something. Again, a lot of stuff would have to align. Yeah. There would have to be some injuries. There would have to be mainly injuries, really, to the Ravens and Bengals
in their
division. Yeah. Some of these teams are good. Falcons, again, like you mentioned, Keenan, at their base level, they're a good team. They're a good team, and they could be way better than mid if Cousins comes back and is slinging it, and that offense can be explosive. Then yeah, they go to a different tier. But right now, these are all 7 to 9, and an ugly 10-win team if any of these teams get to 10. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why they are the mid tier. Anything else to add to that? Should we move on?
Move on.
These three teams are an injury away. I don't necessarily think they're contenders, but I think they're right there. All they need is an injury. I think if you're a Cowboys fan, if you're a Dolphins fan, if you're a Browns fan, you've got optimism, but you don't necessarily think okay, we're definitely going to win it. Like Cowboys last year thought they had a real chance. Now you're kind of hoping for some injuries here and there. from these three teams. So they're the outside looking in as far as Super Bowl. I think they're definitely going to be in the playoff picture. Maybe they end up missing the playoffs, one of these three teams or all three of these teams. But, they'll be fighting for a playoff spot. But they're also a team that if they make it in, yeah, you're thinking you have a spot. You're thinking you're having a chance. So
Miami needs the entire road to go through Miami if they're going to win this, and then they need Tua to completely stay healthy.
Right.
And defensively, they're going to have to step up. They lost some defensive pieces. Dallas is just going to not have to Dallas, and Cleveland's going to need to see Deshaun Watson from a decade ago. So we'll see if I like them all being tiered together because I think all of them are playoff teams. Playoff caliber teams that if for some reason all three of them missed the playoffs by a game, I would be fine with. And if all of them ended up in the AFC or NFC championship game, I would be like, you know what? Something broke right for them finally. Would I bank it on it? Nope. But something happened right for these franchises for them to get there because they have enough talent on those rosters to manage to get their way there. They just have to actually align with it. So I'm fine with them being tiered together, and I agree everything.
That was the perfect description of this tier. I couldn't have said any of that better myself. That's exactly why this tier is that tier. So,
and I agree with all three of them. Absolutely. Yep.
I also agree. I think this is a pretty good little tier you got. I think we could rename it to one seed away. Like, I think if all three of these teams played to their peak performance, they could be the one seed, and then they could cause some trouble in the playoffs. I don't think the Dolphins can really go on the road in the playoffs and win a game against like Kansas City or like any other cold weather team. But if they're the one seed and they got a home playoff game, sure, I think they could go toe to toe with any team. Same with the Cowboys. If they had a first round bye, maybe Dak gets a little bit more sleep and they don't come out so stale. I don't know. Maybe it works out, but we never know.
Before I respond to both of you, was that a real excuse that I missed that Dak didn't get enough sleep before the playoff game last year?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just every single year, man.
I was ready to fire.
He does the same thing.
I was ready to fire off. Oh, gonna get midseason Kyle going right there. Yeah, I mean, exactly what you guys said. If there were an injury and the Dolphins were able to claim a 1 or 2 seed, then yeah, you really got a chance. Everyone would seem to tell you, all these draft experts would tell you that the Dolphins killed it in their draft. Will that translate to the season? Is that even true? We'll see. The Browns, best defense in the league last year, a tough place to play, right? Their defense can travel. It did not against the Texans last year. And like Keenan said, Deshaun Watson, you just don't know. You literally do not know. This team, honestly, they could have qualified for the question mark tier, but they have been insanely competitive.
There's too much talent for me to have.
And that's
the
there,
thing. But you know what, Kyle? You're not.
That's
wrong.
the thing. There's way too much talent for them.
Wrong.
That's ultimately what got them here. Because if this team had any less talent and still had their quarterback situation, they would absolutely be in the question mark tier. But ultimately,
you could argue Dallas could be in the question mark depending on what you want to do with Dak in a year. Like they're kind of going to be in almost, and with their front offense and how they are, you can kind of almost put them. You could argue that they're there, but
dude,
like
they gotta pay CD every day that they don't pay CD. His contract goes up.
You saw,
like, we literally have seen so many wide receivers sign massive contracts. Guess what? Jamar Chase is going to get a deal before CD, and then CD is going to need $60 million a year or some shit. It's going to be crazy. We saw Tyreek get an extension. All these guys, like Jerry Jones, is literally he said something today. He said, "We're in no rush to get a deal done." You should have been in a rush a year ago to get a deal done. You could have got a $20 million discount.
The most consistent player on your entire roster, both sides of the ball.
Y'all see
exactly
what you need.
Y'all see CD? Do you see his response to that?
Yeah, he's like, okay.
Yeah, he just tweeted LOL, lowercase LOL.
Yeah, LOL
to Jerry Jones. So
yeah,
I mean, honestly,
we can move him to the question mark there. That's
honestly,
just put Jerry Jones in the question mark there.
Yeah, for real. Honestly, I put the Cowboys there. I was almost being nice because I think that's what I mean, honestly, no. Their fans are being pretty realistic. I don't think their fans are thrilled about this upcoming season. But coming off of last season, I know it ended badly, but they did have probably their most promising season in quite a long time, right? Yeah, they've been a playoff team for several years, but last year it looked really good. People were talking Super Bowl, which is hilarious. It was adorable. It was thank you for that, Cowboys fans and the media at large. But I am not. I mean, without giving too much away about preseason predictions, this is one team I am down on is the Cowboys. Now, I think they're less talented than last year. That defense is still could be a problem. They've got a lot of athletes on that defense, so they could really turn it up on you. And there's still enough. You still got CD and Dak. Got questions about the run game. So, yeah, they're a team that, in theory, could be an injury away and could be competitive still. But could I see them being just hot mid? Could I see them even having a disaster season and going 6 or 7 wins? Anything's on the table for Dallas.
Yep.
You heard me say months ago, I forget what it was when we all did that pod with Duke and Brandon. We had the 5-man pod, and I said, I still think this. I think this is Dak's last season in Dallas. I don't know why. I don't know. I just don't have a good feeling about this season for Dallas. Again, without giving too much away from our preseason pod, but I don't know. Again, I think I'm being nice by putting them there, but yeah, they could be in the mid-tier group. They could be in the question mark group. Ultimately, I'm giving them the respect from the last few seasons. If Dak Prescott's that guy, they'll at least be in this group if he's really that guy, and could even rise. So this next tier is another single tier. I actually originally had them in the injury away group. Tim, you have a kid and we didn't know it? You and Gab?
I got 2 cats.
That's right. The cat did make noise last year on the pod. That's true.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
true.
I got a new one. The new one doesn't make any noise.
A new cat.
But this one?
He said I got a new one like it's like a PS5 or something. Or car.
Brand new
one.
baby.
Got a new cat. Shouts to Gabby, by the way.
Refurbished cat.
Secondhand
cat. Y'all are funny. Anyway.
Wicked deal on it.
Much like the Chargers, this team's got their own tier. Originally had them in the injury away group. And I also could have put them in the next group, but I didn't feel comfortable. That's why they have their own tier. A team like no other. A team we will be discussing a lot. A team just full of drama, and they haven't even took a snap yet. They are the New York Jets. What more can I say? I mean, they got Aaron Rodgers coming off the Achilles injury. This team's going to have real expectations. Again, I would have had them on tiers ahead, but there's no way I could make an actual prognosis of this team. Or forecast of this team, I should say. Not prognosis, but there's no way I could make a real forecast of this team. Yes, they have a great defense. Yes, they have weapons in theory. But they also have a 40-plus-year-old quarterback coming off the worst injury in sports. Oh, and you want to talk mid? Robert Saleh, hot mid right there. I mean, you're telling me this is going to be a Super Bowl contender with Robert Saleh as their coach. I have a hard time believing that. Me personally, I have a hard time believing that. I know he's a good defensive coach. Seems like a good guy. I just, compared to the coaches ahead of him, I really don't know. So that's why they're in a tier by themselves. Yes, they could go up. They could be in the injury away group. That could even be disrespectful, some would say. There's a lot of people still picking the Jets to straight up come out of the AFC. I think they would need some help. And again, like Keenan said, we'll need to see what Aaron Rodgers looks like. You know, we could know week 1, like, oh, this ain't going to work. Right? So react.
I would probably have now thinking about it, the Jets and Falcons in the same tier, and so torn Achilles with a question mark.
You know what? I'm mad I didn't put them in a torn Achilles group.
Because that would be it. Because when you cut out the quarterback position, you look at these rosters, you're like, okay, you got the running backs in both positions, you got the skill positions. I know the Falcons have a little bit more skill position depth than the Jets do, and then but the Jets have a little bit better defensively than the Falcons do. The Falcons do have pieces defensively. Both of these teams, you look and you're like, if you inserted, say, Jared Goff on both of those teams, you'd be like, they're absolutely playoff contenders for sure if everything's fine. And they have 2 quarterbacks who are capable of being better than Jared Goff, and 2 quarterbacks that could be worse because they're coming off of terrible injuries into old age. So I'd probably have the Falcons with the Jets. The Falcons with the Jets in a torn Achilles question mark tier, but I am fine with you having the Jets on their own because I have no idea. Some people are like Aaron Rodgers is coming back with a vengeance and he's going to be MVP A-Rod, and other people are like, I don't think they're even going to win 9 games. So, like, I don't know. We'll see where I have them, but yeah.
I agree with having them in their own tier because I think if you take away the quarterback and you just look at these teams' raw talent, the Jets do have a better roster. They got a way better defense. I think Garrett Wilson is probably better than London. I think Breece Hall is on the same tier as Bijan. I think they're very, very close. So
yeah, I think they're close.
I think really the only place that the Falcons really stand out is their offensive line, but the Jets have built up a pretty good one this year, and Pro Football Focus has them ranked pretty high. I think they hit them all the way up to like the 12th best O-line in the league with the additions that they've made this year. So if that is true, and they play well, and Rodgers doesn't get hurt 4 minutes into the season again, then it could be a great season. It could all come down to just a lot of drama and a lot of big messes that need to be cleaned up. And then when that's the case, Salah's gone, everybody's gone, they're rebuilding again. I do hope that this team is good. My brother is a Jets fan.
I didn't even know you had a brother.
Has been pretty much his whole life.
I didn't even know you had a brother.
So random.
I got 4 brothers.
Oh shit!
So
you got a.
We're talking your younger brother, right?
So you got a giant and.
I was about to say we can't be talking about Elliot. He doesn't care about sports in the slightest. I was going to say we cannot be talking about Elliot here. We're talking about this guy. Shout out to Elliot. Shout out to Elliot.
Yeah, I hope they're good because I do want to. I mean, as a Giants fan, growing up in the same house with a Jets fan, it's literally just been year after year of turmoil, of just like terrible football. So like I hope both these teams are good, but like it is what it is. Like they're cursed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean if you've listened to this podcast, I love nothing more than just watching the Jets just suffer. It's just warms my heart like Christmas morning. It's beautiful. It's great. But one last thing about Jets suffering, I don't think I brought this up on last year's pod, but I think about it from time to time, and I laugh about it every single time. After Aaron Rodgers' injury last year, I think it was like the next quarter, like sometime in the second quarter after like Zach Wilson had a couple terrible drives, ESPN cut to commercial, cut to the Jets fans, and they played Blurry by Puddle of Mud. And it was so depressing, and I could not stop laughing. And there's times I'll be up in the morning getting ready for work, and I'll just think about it and laugh. Like I just had to get that out there. And if you guys caught that, I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as me, if you remember that. But to the actual football part of all of this, yeah, man, Aaron Rodgers. Like, let me ask you guys this: let's say their line, because that's certainly besides having Zach Wilson at quarterback last year, their line was certainly their biggest weakness. So let's say their line's above average, right? Above average line. Rodgers is protected. Let's say Rodgers has taken a slight step back. He's not MVP Rodgers, but he's still winning quarterback Rodgers, right? Maybe not explosive, but can still get the job done. Line's improved. That defense, because it's not Zach Wilson, will not have time to rest. So that defense by default should cause more turnovers in that case. If I give you that right there, if I give you that forecast, Jets defense, even better, more fresh, a good quarterback, and a better offensive line. Therefore, you can not only run the ball, but you don't got to worry about a torn Achilles on the 4th play of the season. What do you think that Jets record looks like if I gave you that?
10-7 to 12-5.
Okay.
I was going to say 11 wins. So
I'd agree with that. And that's the thing. Ultimately, let's say it is 11 wins. I still don't know what that means with Robert Saleh as your head coach. I still don't know what that means in regards to the teams I have ahead of. And even below, like if that was a Jets-Browns first-round matchup, let's say. Maybe we do give them a pass because it's Aaron Rodgers. Again, a pretty good Aaron Rodgers is still probably much better than Deshaun Watson, unless Deshaun happens to bounce back. We'll see. That's, again, huge question mark there. But, yeah. The Jets next to the teams ahead of them that I have in the AFC, I just don't know. Even with that, optimistic version of them with a good offensive line, with, a more balanced team. Again, they do have a great running back. They do have pretty good receivers. Garrett Wilson's a stud. And again, this defense is the real deal. And if they got more rest, in theory, everything should just go up. They got 7 wins, I think, in consecutive seasons with Zach Wilson at QB. I mean, so that alone, you should be able to say, hey, Kyle, all right, you cut Robert Saleh some slack there. They got 7 wins with Zach Wilson, and you got Aaron Rodgers. That by default should give them 4+ wins, right? But again, like we keep repeating, we just don't know what it's going to look like with Aaron Rodgers. So he's the big question. That line's still a question. But like you said, by default, it should be beefed up. And the defense still should remain. Everything still should be good there. But, man, I mean, like I led off, they're already – I mean, we haven't heard too much drama yet. But, I mean, even last year was dramatic. And, the Jets, even for as terrible as they've been one of the more dramatic teams of my lifetime continuously. So, I don't know. I mean, they don't have an easy schedule either, Keenan. I believe you looked at their schedule last pod. We were talking about the Patriots, and even their first 4 games are like, it's not easy. No. They open up against the Niners. No. Could you go through their schedule once again, possibly?
Yeah, move on to your hold on just a second. Take 2 seconds. They've got the 49ers, Titans, Patriots, Denver. So they start the season off.
Could start 3-1.
Not terrible. Then they play Minnesota. So that's pretty solid thus far. Then they've got Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New England, Houston, Arizona, Indy, bye week, Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, Rams, Buffalo, Miami.
Yeah, so we'll find out. We will absolutely find out because that is a tough schedule after those first 4 weeks. Absolutely. Yep. All right. We're down to the top 10. This next tier is 5 teams. This is the size-up group. This is the team. I mean, we'll get to the top 5, but these are all teams who, their fans might not be saying it out loud, but in the locker room, they really do, they're measuring themselves against the teams that are ahead of them. Puffing the chefs out. They're sizing them up. Think you're better than me type shit. They're whispering in the locker room that they got Super Bowl chances. Their teams aren't saying it out loud, or their fans, aren't saying it out loud, but low key, they all think they got a chance. I got the Texans in this group. I got the Packers in this group. I got the Eagles in this group. I got the Rams in this group, and I've got the Buffalo Bills in this group. And they could all move up to the next tier. I'll give you the next tier. You guys want the next tier right now so we can talk about the top 10, or you want to just let's discuss this 5 first?
Just give me the next.
Okay. Yeah, let's discuss this 5 first. You guys agree that
I'm perfectly fine.
Could you? Oh, sorry, but could you guys see all these teams? I got 2 AFC and I got 3 NFC. Could you hypothetically see all these teams in the championship game of the respective conferences?
The only one for me that would honestly... Philly, after the report that came out with Sirianni and Hurts, I don't know if you guys saw this report, but there was a report that came out with Sirianni and Hurts, and basically last year they could not be almost in the same room together because they didn't want to be around, and now they just don't really speak much. They're better terms, but they're okay on terms right now. So hopefully that's not that toxic of a situation. If that's the case, then maybe. But obviously, if your coach and your quarterback are not on the same page, it's not going to go well at all. So they're a team that I'm keyed in on because I think that's going to be interesting. And then Buffalo, I just don't know what it looks like without the weapons that they had prior. I know last year we saw them tailor their game more towards James Cook, more towards Josh Allen, kind of utilizing his legs, and then building that defense. The defense is going to be healthier, hopefully. Obviously, we don't know what the season's going to be like. So going in, the season will be presumably healthier, but the weapons really aren't there. And I think there are definitely teams that have upped themselves. So the Buffalo Bills wouldn't shock me, but I would be a little surprised if they made the championship game. They're definitely a playoff contender for sure. They're definitely a playoff caliber team, 100%. So those would be the 2 teams. The other 3, Houston, absolutely could get to the championship game. Wouldn't shock me. I like the moves that they've made, but it's going to be putting it together now. Green Bay, I think that's the next logical step for them, but also they could take a step back before they take a step forward. We'll see how that happens, how Jordan Love progresses. And then the Rams, I just think the Rams are ahead of schedule for where I thought they mentally were going to be, because last year I thought they were going – what they were this year is what I thought they were possibly doing last year, which was sneaking into a playoff. And now they're kind of ahead of schedule. Puka Nacua rising up to the occasion, being better. You have Cooper Kupp, obviously Matthew Stafford finally healthy again. Kyron Williams in the backfield. You got a true back now to take over from when Todd Gurley was there and that time too. So, yeah, be my thoughts.
I would agree. I think for the most part, I could see all these teams. The one that would shock me is the Texans. I think they've made these moves. You know, they got Stephon, they got Joe Mixon, they got people in there, but I said this before the pod, that's a lot of mouths to feed. I think the problem with CJ Stroud is I do think he's a really good quarterback, but I think a lot of these fans are putting the cart before the horse here. We haven't seen necessarily MVP CJ Stroud, and that's just what they're expecting. They're expecting him to come in here with Stephon Diggs, a healthy Tank Dell and Nico, and Dalton Schultz and Joe Mixon, and to just throw 40 touchdowns and be electric and, be like a top quarterback. We saw a very efficient season from him, but he's got to, for this to be an AFC championship team, I think he's got to be averaging 2 to 3 touchdowns a game, and I don't see that. I think there might be an issue with Stephon Diggs going down the line. We know he's a diva. He, got his way out of Minnesota. Then now he's got a problem in Buffalo, so they move him, and then it's I could totally see them just not working out and being a 10-win team, and I don't think a 10-win team is necessarily going to get there. So that's the team I have a problem with. I think all the other ones can. Jordan Love, I think, can take that next step even more and be great. I think the Eagles are poised for a bounce back. They actually have offensive coordinator now. They don't have a defensive coordinator playing an offensive coordinator's job. That's great. And then the Rams, I've always had belief in Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. I'm a little worried about Puka's injury because they're listing him as week to week. If that's the case, that's kind of scary. I'd like to get a little bit more information on it. They said he had a bursa sack, but I've known athletes in my college career that had that thing, and it hurt them for the entire season. So If that is something that flares up, that could be a problem going forward. But I think the Bills are probably fine. Like you said, they switched when Joe Brady took over. They started running more, but it worked. If that's their new identity, that's fine with me. Josh Allen's going to run great. James Cook can run great. So I'm not too worried about the Bills. I think the only team that would actually surprise me at the AFC Championship level is the Texans.
Got you. And I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I want to say I view the Texans and the Packers as the same exact version of each other in the AFC and NFC. They're young. They loaded up in the offseason. They already had good rosters last year. The Texans obviously way outperformed anybody's expectations last year. But now, they showed us with the offseason what they expect, right? So they are a true measuring stick team. They really do think they should not only make the playoffs, go deep in the playoffs, but they're not even probably worried about the rest of their division. They know it's tough, but they truly believe they should win the division, right? Packers, they got the Lions in their division. So it's really they really will be measuring themselves neck and neck with the Lions and how they're doing. The Texans actually remind me a lot of the Lions as far as everyone's expectations for them. Last year, everyone and their mama had real expectations about the Lions. That's the case with the Texans this year. Everybody is picking them to, at least make it to the AFC Championship game. Maybe there's some people's Super Bowl picks. And again, I'm kind of with you, Tim. I'm worried. I'm kind of I'll believe it when I see it with the Texans, just because how much CJ Stroud outperformed. And who's the head coach? I can't remember his name right now. Excuse me.
DeMeco.
That's right. DeMeco Ryans. They both outperformed what we thought their expectations were last year, right? Now they got real expectations. They loaded up, got them more weapons on offense. If all goes the way it should, then yes. These teams should be competing for an AFC Championship spot or an NFC Championship spot. There's still teams ahead of them that are, just as worthy, but they should be right there, and they should be dangerous, right? The Eagles, Yeah, I did see that report. But again, the offense was already pretty good. They kind of lost their way. The run game kind of petered out. And they're going to be losing Jason Kelsey, which, that is going to affect their run game. But their defense should be better. And yes, the Sirianni hurts. That could be bad. If they start losing, if they get off to a bad start, it's going to go south, especially in Philly. But, let us remind you, it was a little fraudulent, but they did start off 10-1 last year, I believe. They did just make the Super Bowl just 2 seasons ago. They got something to build on there, and they still got a ton of talent. They got Saquon. I don't know. I feel like they're better than the Cowboys, which isn't saying much, right? All they got to do is win their division, and they've got enough talent to where they can compete with those guys ahead of them. Again, that's why they're a measuring stick team. They probably believe they're a Super Bowl team. They might not be. The Rams, again, we know they killed it in the draft last year. They're building. It's really with them. Can Stafford stay healthy? How much will they miss Aaron Donald? That'll be, we'll find out. That defense was pretty good last year. So we'll see with them. They're actually the biggest question mark to me out of this group because of Stafford, because of his age, and again, with losing Aaron Donald. But overall, they have a ton of talent, and they got that veteran savvy. And the Bills, I'm really not too worried about with their run game, with their newfound run game, I should say. And the defense is going to be better by default, just by being healthy. So between that with Josh Allen, Keon Coleman, he could be, what if he's a number 1? If he's a number 1, that could change a lot of life for them, I think, because I do think they have a good supporting cast in general as far as the receiving core goes. But yeah, they all have questions. They could all fall down a tier, and some of those teams from the lower tiers could rise up and take one of these teams' spots. But that's the lower half of my top 10 for right now. Any objections, any more comments of the lower half of the top 10? Nope. And then Super Bowl or bust, these top 5, I don't think there's any objections here. Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals, Lions, and Niners.
Alrighty. No, I have no objections there. And the Super Bowl or bust, the only thing you could possibly do is depending. There's a few teams that you could technically add.
Actually, sorry, should be number 1 spot. Should be the number 1 spot.
No, I was gonna say no. I was gonna say number 1 spot. This is where
Luda comes out.
I was gonna say these teams. I feel like we're going to talk more about. It was KC, Detroit, Baltimore, Cincinnati, and which team am I forgetting? It's 49ers. But yeah, no, these teams we're going to talk more about when we do our predictions and everything. All 5 of these teams, if we see them hoisting a Lombardi, no one's totally shocked, especially Detroit. Detroit was literally a few plays away from last year. 49ers are a few plays from last year. We saw the Chiefs do it. We've seen the Bengals get there a couple of years back, and we've seen them in the AFC Championship game. We just saw the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. Yeah. All of these teams have Super Bowl potential, and then all teams. KC's going for the 3-peat. Yeah. Well, Detroit.
I just want to say real quick, Keenan. As I mentioned the tier before, they might be whispering in the locker room. These 5 teams, without a doubt, they're not even thinking anything but. They're not even thinking AFC or NFC Championship. They're only thinking Super Bowl here. So those are the 5 teams I can say definitively. Yeah. The Bills were almost a team I moved up to this group just because they've got that upper echelon quarterback and they've had real expectations for years, but they've had enough movement. And last year was such a weird season for them that they kind of – so that's why them and the Eagles especially.
Last year they were there.
Yeah.
Going into last year, they would have been easily in the Super Bowl. But this year, I think when you get rid of – don't have Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. When you have these people who aren't there anymore, I think you're okay.
Let me be clear. Just to go back to the Bills, and I kind of mentioned this last year, I'm not even really worried about the Stephon Diggs departure. I don't think I don't know if it came from the Diggs camp or – if this was just knowledge among certain fans, but there's people who just thought Josh Allen purposely wasn't getting Diggs the ball. And I was not of that camp. I just thought, I don't think Diggs is washed by chance, but I think Diggs is definitely taking a step back. And he still had pretty good stats last year, but I don't think he's going to be people are excited about him being on the Texans, but I also think that's a luxury for him to be their number 3 guy. You know what I mean? So I think he's entered a different part of his career. But the Bills, again, and I don't want to harp too much on them because we just talked about them, but, just their defense being healthy, that alone could just catapult them to this tier right here where it's Super Bowl or bust. So that's why them and the Eagles are a measuring stick team. But the Eagles, like the Bengals, I mean, they're only a few years removed from the Super Bowl. And I even thought about putting the Bengals in the size up tier. But the Bengals, I mean, they really have everything. That offense is loaded. You're going to have a healthy Burrow. For how long, who knows, right? And your only question would be, occasionally the offensive line. That defense should be good enough. They at least blitz really well. That defense kind of comes and goes. But by and large, I mean, that's what the Bengals are looking at. They're measuring themselves against the Chiefs and the Ravens. So, yeah.
No, I don't have really much to say about that tier. Those are the people we talk about.
They're pretty indisputable.
The
It's the AFC and NFC championship teams from last year, including the Bengals. And
then the team who was in the AFC championship game 2 years prior,
exactly.
the last 2 years. And the reason why, and halfway through the season, right after Joe Burrow went through his little stint of being bad, when he was like 11 touchdowns to like 2 picks over a 4-week stretch, we were talking about him again, like, oh, well, here come the Bengals. You're ready to be there. And then obviously the injury happened. So, yeah, I don't really have much to say about this tier other than we'll talk about them. We're on to Cincinnati. We'll talk about them in a couple weeks.
If I had to give you out of those 5 teams or out of the remaining 4 teams, which one do you think has the best chance of upending the Chiefs? Like just in general, whether it's the NFC team in the Super Bowl or one of the 2 other AFC teams. Which team do you like the best?
I would say the Bengals.
The Bengals. Okay.
I would say the Bengals, and it's really because of the fact that I think there's a mental edge to it. I think not that they're the exact same thing as the Patriots, but like there was a Patriot mystique that you had like back when the Patriots were truly the Patriots, and beating them was tough. Like the Ravens have never beat them in a pivotal, like an important game. The Lions obviously beat them week 1 last year, but they haven't even been to that important game. And then the 49ers have lost to them twice in the Super Bowl already. Joe Burrow has actually beaten them in KC in a championship game. So it's kind of that. And the second game was super close. So it kind of comes down to like we know we can beat this team, and this team had Tyreek Hill on it too when we beat them.
Tim, what about you?
But yeah,
I think what I would do is I would take these 2 tiers that you have and I would split them into 3 tiers.
Interesting.
So I would take the Texans and the Packers out of the Super Bowl chances tier and put them in their own little tier right below it. I would then move the Lions and the Bengals into that Super Bowl chances tier with the Eagles, the Rams, and the Bills. And then I would keep the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the 49ers as Super Bowl or bust. That's how I think I would do it. Because those 2 teams, the Bengals and the Lions, I have a little bit of worries. The Lions, this is their best year in
ever.
The millennia, like
ever.
The turn of the century. They have to repeat that. And that's very difficult to do. The Bengals, I want to see Burrow play before I can be like, yep, they're back to that tier. The problem with him was the hand injury. I had seen a video. I don't know if this is the case with him or not, but that specific hand injury, like 80% of patients lose strength in their hand. They never get back to full strength, and that's his throwing hand. That can be a major problem.
That's not good.
So if that is the case, this team could take a step back, and that's why I just want to move them. I think the Bengals are right in line with like the Bills, but I still want to keep the Chiefs, the Niners, and the Ravens in their own. These teams are clearly better than all the other teams.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
To respond to that, again, the reason why the Bengals aren't in a lower tier is just because, like, at their best, that offense is just like, you know what you're getting. You're getting at least 25 points from that offense, right? Even on a bad day. So that's really what it is. But in general, I do have the same questions, especially about Burrow. It sucks to say that now that Burrow is just an official like injury risk. Is he going to make it all 17 games? And that's the thing. 17 games, we saw it last year. Like a lot of these quarterbacks did not make it throughout the whole season. It's officially a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, we talk about it every year, Keenan, since it turned to 17 games, just how much longer the season feels just with that one game. Like it's crazy. So that would be my worry with the Bengals. You kind of said about the Lions, and it's funny. it's really like, are they going to be a Lions cursed season? Like, is the curse going to get them, right? Because yeah, the vibes are too good. I don't think there's ever been in my lifetime 2 seasons in a row like this.
They even hosted the draft at Eminem.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Eminem at the draft. Like, I've never had 2 seasons in a row of Lions football where the vibes were good from the fan base, right? And just in general, the NFL, you know, lexicon at large, whether it's the fans, media, everyone expects the Lions to be good and to be competing, at least going towards that NFC Championship game. Of course, health can ruin that for any team. But in general, that's what they're looking at. Them, the Bengals, the Ravens, they're looking at the Super Bowl. Now, going back to the sizing up tier, going back to that 10 through 6 tier, which one of those teams do you like confidently see like, oh, yeah, they could be raising the Super Bowl. They could be raising the Lombardi trophy at the end of the year. They could be upending the Chiefs. They could be upending the Ravens or the Niners and the Lions. Which one out of the Texans, Packers, Eagles, Rams, or Bills are you guys most confident in general?
I know you guys disagree with me on this, but it'd be Houston.
I don't necessarily disagree. It's just I have to see it to believe it.
For me, it's Houston, and it's because right now, just how their rosters, how the team's progressing, I could see Stroud having one of those years where he took a next step. The team's able to compete, and I see him playing big in big moments. So I would say for me in that group would be the Texans.
I think I'd take Philly. I think the team that they had in the Super Bowl 2 years ago is pretty close to the team they got now. It's very, very similar. They've got a better running back now. They've got, pieces. They did lose Kelsey, but Cam Jurgens is still a good lineman to fill in that gap. They have Super Bowl experience. I think that is really, out of all these teams, no other team in that tier has Super Bowl experience. No other team has successful championship game experience. So,
Rams do.
That's fair. That's true. The Rams are there. But I think I would take Philly.
Fair enough.
I think I would take. I'm going to tell. All right. I would take the Bills or the Eagles, even though the Eagles in this case, I don't necessarily like their roster as much as the Packers or the Texans, right? The Texans, what worries me about the Texans more than just like CJ Stroud just like coming back to earth a little bit, if possible. And if he's the real deal, then all bets are off. All bets are off because there's so much talent on this team. DeMeco Ryans is obviously a defensive coach. That defense is lights out, and Stroud is pretty good. Yeah, this team's there. My only issue with them, in contrast to the Bills and the Eagles, is that division's tough, right? And the AFC East is tough too, don't get me wrong. But if you're telling me Cat's getting wild over there. If you're telling me though that the Jets really do live up to all the because we have a lot of questions about the Jets, right? If they Jets, if it gets dramatic and they end up being a 9-win team, then it's really the Bills versus the Dolphins. And I'm taking the Bills in that case. Even with some injuries, as we saw last year, they're going to run the ball better. They can play better in the cold. So the fact that they just got to come out of the AFC East, really, that bodes well for them. And that's kind of the case with the Eagles for me. I'm not too worried about the Commanders, Giants, or Cowboys. So I think the Eagles, even if there is some drama with Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, if they can run the ball, not turn the ball over, and their defense can cause turnovers, they're already in a great spot. You're already going to stack up wins. And if you can be that much better than even just the Cowboys, because again, I don't think the Giants and the Commanders are going to be a real factor, they should be okay. That should give them a high seed. But if the Texans, Keenan, like you said, if they are clearly better than the Colts and the Jags, and they're not really giving them problems, and they're, they go something like, 4-2 in the division, then, they should be okay. But I'm assuming that their schedule, again, this is an assumption because of their seeding last year and because of their playoffs last year, I'm assuming they have a tough schedule. And that's on top of, again, a pretty tough division. But in general, if I had to pick one out of them, it would be the Bills because of the health of their defense.
They do have a late bye, but after that bye, they have the Dolphins, Chiefs, and Ravens back to back to back. Ravens on Netflix.
That's right. On a Christmas Day. On a fucking Wednesday.
So I was gonna say they start.
I'm mad at that.
Start.
They should have left they gotta leave Christmas to the NBA. They got Thanksgiving. They got every other Sunday.
Yeah. But they've taken it over, but that's fine. You know.
They're greedy. We don't need NFL on a Wednesday. We just don't need it.
I like the tiers, Kyle. I do. I think that you did a good job putting all these where these teams are and kind of how you feel about them. So I'm good with it.
Yeah, and I want to repeat for the listeners, again, this isn't a power ranking per se. I mean, if it is, it's an ugly power ranking of them. And it's not necessarily a reflection of what I think is going to happen in the season. Same with Keenan and Tim. This is just where I think these teams are kind of measuring themselves right now, especially the top tier, like the top 15, 16. I think they all believe like, oh, we can make the playoffs. And then the further you get up that list, they have real expectations, you know, and then everything below that is teams that are either delusional, fun, injury away. I would include the fun teams in that injury away group. Like that middle tier is all kind of grouped together and they can go either way. But, you know, these teams that do have a new era, like I do think the Commanders could be better than expected. That's one team in particular that is at the very bottom tier, but could be a better team than expected, you know? Whereas the Pats, I have no expectations for. I think the Pats are going to be a bottom 3 team in the league for sure. And the Panthers are in a tier ahead of them with the question marks group. But I think the Panthers are right in that Patriots group. You know what I mean? So along with the Raiders, along with the Broncos, I think they're all going to be trash teams, but they're just tiered differently. So, yeah.
All right, sounds good. I will be unveiling my top 32 quarterbacks list here within the next week and a half, 2 weeks. We'll be doing the prediction shows, of course, coming up soon.
Maybe we should do the QB tier list next Thursday. Have Tim back on.
Yeah.
That'll be the same day the WNBA comes back.
Man, I might not be able to do it that day. I'm a bit busy. But I'm just kidding. Absolutely. Well, within the next 2 weeks, you'll see our quarterback list. This tiers list will be put out as well. Timmy, I thank you. Good to have you back. Good to see you on the show, of course. This was the Warner Brothas Podcast. We've got Timmy. We've got Kyle. We've obviously got myself. YouTube, TikTok, the Warner Brothas Podcast. Instagram, Warner Brothas Podcast. Appreciate all love, support, everything. If you guys have any comments on Kyle's tiers, please let us know. I would love to hear what you guys think about Kyle's tiers and where he has teams ranked and up and down. Where would you move teams to kind of have them where their season fits? But this was the Warner Brothas Podcast. We appreciate all of you, and we'll see you guys soon.